Is that better? Okay. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. My name is Awais Khan. I'm here and really excited about our 76th seminar on the geography of power, Pakistan in the age of strategic realignments. We have a very special guest here today with us. But just to remind all of you, the series here hosts special and honorable guests whose voices we think are very relevant and important and insightful for not just the current situation of the international system, but also for the future. So on that note, I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Rabia Akhtar. She is the Dean of Social Sciences in the University of Lahore. She also serves as the Professor of International Relations and Founding Director of both the Center for Security, Strategy, and Policy Research and the School of Integrated Social Sciences. She holds a PhD in Security Studies from Kansas State University, with earlier degrees from Quaid-e-Azam University and Eastern Illinois University. Her research spans South Asian nuclear security. Okay. So as I was saying, the live link is back. I was saying I give the floor to Dr. Rabia Akhtar. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First of all, thank you so much, Professor Sami and Professor Wes Khan at SIGA for hosting me today. I'm really honored to be here, and I've been following SIGA and the conversations that you have had over a period of years. You said this is the 76th session, so it's really remarkable. So today I want to talk to you about Pakistan and its strategic realignments, as I call them, in today's day and age. So when we talk about geography of power, I do believe that it is being rewritten. It's not only being rewritten by diplomats, but also in battlefields, in boardrooms, in data centers. And we live in an era where maps still matter, but meaning matters even more, where old alliances are bending, but are not really breaking. And where middle powers, not only superpowers, are increasingly shaping the outcomes. So I'm speaking to you today as a scholar from Pakistan, also from a region where the world's fault lines are multi-layered, stuck between great powers, between narratives, and between futures. So we are in the post Cold War moment, and that's really debatable, depending upon where you stand and how you're looking at it. And I believe that there are three seismic shifts that define today's strategic environment. The first is the great power competition between the US and China, which is structural, it is not episodic. The second is that the regional powers are hedging. They're not blindly following a bloc like they did during the Cold War. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Indonesia, several other countries, they are following a hedging strategy. And third is the emerging technology and connectivity now redraws power much like territory once did. Alliances are being formed, chip alliances, for example, are being formed around the world. So this is not a world which is after power. It is a world which is in search of a new equilibrium of power. And I see that differently. So let me begin by sharing Pakistan's strategic story from frontline state to middle power aspiration. So Pakistan's history in the international politics is often framed through the Cold War prism of alliances, of nuclearization, and of conflict. But there is a deeper story, a story of strategic autonomy which is managed through alignments. Between managing Washington and Beijing, very few states in this world have navigated both Washington and Beijing as consistently as Pakistan has. So over a period of decades, early 50s, 60s, Pakistan was part of US alliance frameworks of CENTO and SEATO. Then in the 1970s, Pakistan was the first country to provide an opening to China, enabling the Nixon-Mao diplomacy. Then in the 1990s up to 2000, US-Pakistan Counterterrorism Cooperation, plus the era of nuclear consolidation, Pakistan went nuclear in 1998. 2013 onwards, it was Pakistan-China Economic Corridor and the Belt and Road Initiative embrace that came, and that became the Pakistan's flagship project, also China's flagship project. And 2025 post-May crisis that we have just had with India, we see again a recalibration, a re-engagement with greater powers in the region, and a realignment with Washington. So Pakistan, to my mind, has not oscillated accidentally. I believe that it has balanced deliberately, sometimes imperfectly. Obviously, Pakistan is not a perfect state, but always with a view of strategic survival, of deterrent stability, and its developmental needs. So it has had to balance these three over a period of years. So today, Pakistan is not longer merely a security state. It is a middle power which convenes between two global poles. And that space must be cultivated, not abandoned. Moving on to China and CPEC and connectivity as power. CPEC was never just an economic corridor. It was a strategic corridor, a developmental corridor, and now increasingly a geo-economic reset for Pakistan. And it signals Pakistan as a gateway to the Indian Ocean. It had a trans-regional role like South Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, providing Pakistan to be the transit hub for all these corridors. And then a proof of concept for a Belt and Road Initiative in volatile theaters, because CPEC in Pakistan, since 2013 has been target of terrorist organizations, and Chinese have lost lives inside Pakistan. So it was a proof of concept for BRI in volatile theaters. The second phase of industrialization, SECs, digital corridors, energy transition, all of this is Pakistan's focus. It's not going to come easy because the challenges remain. But Pakistan is looking at as strategic leverage rather than dependence. Post-May 2025, Pakistan has had a US relaunch of its strategy. The May 2025 crisis basically changed calculations. It demonstrated for Pakistan that it was ready for crisis and had escalation management processes in place. Disinformation counter strategy was developed. There was real-time military briefings that were happening and diplomatic signaling that were happening during the crises. And Pakistan showed responsible nuclear stewardship under stress. And obviously, like many other crises, India and Pakistan could not manage this crisis by themselves. They had to have a third party broker the peace. And again, this time it was the United States, like it has been in all the several crises, to bring both countries, back from the brink and have a ceasefire, which is holding up until this point in time. So Pakistan is, a lot of people say that Pakistan has gone back to its old ways, again in the US strategic sphere, and its dependency has come back. I would say that it is re-entering the conversation as a sovereign actor in a multipolar world. Now, yes, with limitations, but even to have that conversation and seat at the table is important for Pakistan or a state like Pakistan. I'd also briefly talk about the Pakistan-Saudi nexus, which is a strategic depth of a different kind. The emerging Pakistani-Saudi defense understanding reflects, again, not bloc politics, but shared threat perceptions, shared modernization paths, as well as Gulf-South Asia convergence. And for Pakistan, this is strategic oxygen. There is diversification of allies, capital defense, tech, and geopolitical weight. It comes with all of that. And for Riyadh, Pakistan is, militarily capable, has the requisite defense know-how, and nuclear adjacent reassurance. So when the pact was signed, all the buzz was that Pakistan is going to extend its nuclear deterrence umbrella to the Saudis. But Pakistan quickly distanced itself from that narrative because the state did not want this narrative to proceed. So you can say that nuclear adjacent reassurance is more, palatable. This partnership signals, again, a Muslim middle power constellation gradually taking shape. With respect to regional pressures, Pakistan has had to manage two fronts and a narrative battlefield. With India, and which looms largely in Pakistan's strategic calculus and threat perceptions and security dilemma, India's strategic behavior post-May 2025, with precision strike claims, disinformation warfare, its maximalist signaling, it revealed a Hindutva-driven security mindset which was willing to test the escalation ladders. Now, for years on end, Pakistan has had a playbook for a secular India. And now it is faced with an India which is driven by ideology, and Hindutva ideology is not only a political ideology, it's a militarized ideology. So Pakistan's response to that has been calm, calibrated, as well as credible. But there are risks remain because there is counterforce temptation in India. There is doctrinal opacity. India has a no first use policy, but it still, hedges, and there are, we can go into debate about it. There is emerging tech warfare between the two and also in the region with advanced, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, drones, hypersonics in the mix, you name it. And then disinformation, as we saw in the May 2025 crisis, as a first strike. So that has complicated a lot of dynamics in the crisis that did not exist before. So India's push to encircle Pakistan is very real, as seen very, in real time sensed by the Pakistani political military Asian engagements via Quad, via tech coalitions, Indo-Israeli collaboration, Indo-US collaboration. So Pakistan needs to, respond to it strategically and not reactively. And there is a realization for that it might be slow. The challenges might be immense, but, slow and steady. Afghanistan, again, is a problematic deal. And as we sit, as I am in Turkey, we're grateful for Turkey and Qatar to negotiate some sort of a deal between Afghanistan and Pakistan. A stable Afghanistan is a geopolitical necessity for Pakistan. It is not a goodwill project. And that cannot be said enough, that a stable Afghanistan is a geopolitical necessity for Pakistan. What are Pakistan's goals with that? They are to secure its border, which is the international border, which the Afghan Taliban do not accept. Its goals are to counter the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorist networks. Its goal is to prevent proxy warfare return in the region, with obviously Afghan Taliban's outreach to India. Pakistan's goals are for regional energy and transit corridors. None of that is going to happen if the region is not stable for any of the energy, pipelines to go through and come to Pakistan. And then lastly, to support realistic, inclusive governance pathways. So Pakistan still has not recognized, as like any other country, not recognized the Afghan Taliban yet, but obviously has a working relationship with the government. So the fears of encirclement with Afghan-India collaboration are very, very rare. But then obviously there are other strategic openings as well. So I look at Pakistan as a middle power. Pakistan's identity in global politics, it is shifting from periphery and a problem that everybody saw Pakistan having a nuisance value to a pivot and a partner. And what does that middle player notebook demand? It demands issue-based coalitions. It demands norm entrepreneurship, nuclear responsibility, humanitarian tech governance, all of that. It demands geoeconomic diplomacy, and Pakistan's first national security policy early in 2022 talked about making that pivot from geostrategy to geoeconomics. And then, Pakistan, having maritime and blue economy strategy. And in the broader Islamic world, global South thought leadership, although it is slow to come. So we sit at the crossroads of the Arabian Sea, the Middle East, the Central Asia, and China's access routes. And geography gives Pakistan the weight, and it must have the strategy to give it the direction to realize any of this. So Pakistan's strategic future, I believe, needs to rest on balancing its great power relations, neither camping, choosing one side, nor confrontation it cannot afford, connected sovereign autonomy, both sides balancing hedging. Secondly, regional stability through strength and dialogue. It cannot close dialogues. Deterrence, credibility, and crisis communication, even with India, is important, and it needs to be approached. Economic statecrafts, sitting again at the crossroads of these corridors, it needs to have connectivity and encourage competitiveness. And lastly, narrative sovereignty, where Pakistan needs to write its own story, or others are going to write it for it. So in conclusion, Pakistan's geography, I believe, has always been both a curse and a blessing. But it has given it significance. But geography alone, as we know, students of history, is no longer the only variable that confers power. Strategy, adaptability, and imagination do. Pakistan has had leadership crisis. Pakistan needs to find stability in order for that imagination to happen. The age of strategic alignments, realignments, I don't see that as a threat. I think it is Pakistan's opportunity, and it is an opportunity for it to move from the margins of global narratives to the center of the regional architecture, from crisis management to agenda setting, and from security fixation, which, Pakistan has always been a security state, to finding its strategic purpose. I'd like to end here, and perhaps we can have a Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a brilliant tour de force on giving us a primer on Pakistan's political mapping or geopolitical mapping, both internationally and also regionally. So I really thank you, Dr. Rabia, for that. I want to open the floor for responses. And I really am excited to discuss some of the topics that you mentioned. I have a bunch of questions, but maybe we should.
We can start with the easy ones.
I'll
Yeah.
interweave them into the conversation.
Sure.
So I'll let. Yeah, here you go. Give it to Dr. Sammy first.
First, I want to thank Dr. Akhtar for the presentation. Really excellent presentation. It opens the eyes to many questions and comments. And I would like to start off by pointing out that Pakistan was established based that it's a Muslim country, and that much of its politics since its establishment was centered around being a Muslim country where it wants to be the anchor or central player when it comes to Muslim issues. And starting from that perspective, I want to see if there is a grand strategy for Pakistan when it comes to this issue, or has it evolved into a situation where it looks at itself as simply a country, another country of the 57 Muslim countries, in which it will have to manage its policies based on its interests, whether or not these interests align with this particular ideological position. I want to contrast that, for example, to a state like Iran, where Iran also presented itself, at least since 1979, not only as a Muslim country, albeit it's a Shia, but I don't think that's significant right now, but also that it wants to play a larger role within the spectrum of regional and international politics when it comes to the so-called Muslim issues. So I wanted to get your comment about this particular, what does it mean in Pakistani politics, in Pakistani elites, that it is a Muslim country? It's just people who practice Islam and want to maintain that identity, or does it have something beyond its borders? Does it see a role for Islam as a civilization or as a force that it wants to do? Because that is not visible. So I wanted to see if you can guide us towards what it means to the, again, from the establishment until now. So that's one point I would like to some clarification about. Does it see itself having an alignment with other Muslim countries? Because you talked about middle powers. Certainly Pakistan is trying to present itself as a middle power, and certainly it is a middle power when you consider it's a nuclear armed state. So no one can overlook that fact. But does it look beyond this immediate positioning as a central player within, you said, Middle East, Central Asia, China, subcontinent, and so on and so forth? Or does it seek to have an alignment with other major Muslim countries, like Erbakan was envisioning at one point, with these 8 Muslim countries, that we can start with having a block of economic interests, and then hopefully in the future they can become more strategic. So these are the type of clarifications I would like to hear from you, particularly if there is a grand strategy with respect to the group of Muslim nations. And secondly, when it comes to international competition, great power competition, you said it oscillates, and you gave certain timelines between the United States and China. Now, I'm a student of international politics and geopolitics, and I follow closely many of the experts in the field. Someone like Mearsheimer thinks that at one point in the future, when the competition becomes really fierce, the US will demand that certain countries, and I think Pakistan could be one of them, even though it might not be, depending on how things happen in the next few years, if it has to choose. Now, I've asked that question to a lot of experts, and it seems that there is not consensus, but near consensus, that if Pakistan is pressed, it would have to choose China. I wanted to confirm if that is your opinion. And what does that mean? If it does, if the United States pushes Pakistan to make a choice. And how does that relate to the Indian threat? Certainly the most threatening force, or the most threatening state to Pakistan, which has been since its founding, is the threat of India and the situation in Kashmir, which you haven't touched upon. How does that formulate the policy of Pakistan? And do they really have also a grand strategy or a framework about how to deal with Kashmir? Will Kashmir forever be in this situation? Is there any way out of this situation when it comes to the people of Kashmir? Because if things go in this direction without having any real solution, eventually Kashmir would be dissolved into a Pakistani part, which is taking place, and an Indian part, which will continue the suffering of the people of Kashmir. I would like to hear if there is any new ideas on that regard. Now, on the issues of the borders of Pakistan, of course, is a powerful country, but it has a lot of challenges. I would like to hear about these internal and external challenges, particularly what's going on in Balochistan. Is Pakistan in danger ever of breaking up? Because I know there are certain powerful forces around the globe, in particularly India and Israel, who would like to see Pakistan breaking up, or at least a failed state. Is that a real danger, and how is that being handled? And what is the nature of the threat of Israel? Is Pakistan being extorted that in exchange for not playing with its internal politics, that it must normalize with Israel? Is that something that is being bargained behind the scenes? You said that there is a disturbing first use nuclear policy with India. And I'm sure Pakistan has the same. That's a very dangerous situation. How is that being mitigated, since every few years you have these skirmishes? And since we're talking about nuclear policy, a lot of people, and you mentioned that when they have the Saudi pact, that a lot of people were talking that this could probably give a nuclear cover or a nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia, and maybe by extension to other parts of the Middle East. And then it was completely dismissed, this argument. Why is it completely dismissed? What is the danger of having a nuclear umbrella for Saudi Arabia, or for that matter, any other country in the Middle East, since Israel is undeclared nuclear power and it continues to threaten many countries in the Middle East, particularly neighboring countries? What would be the drawback for Pakistan, in exchange, of course, for certain privileges it may get, to extend such this? I heard also, please confirm or deny, that Pakistan says that there are some red lines, including Mecca and Medina, that it will not allow anybody, and therefore it will, by extension, that means the whole power of Pakistan. That is true. Could that be extended to Jerusalem also, since Jerusalem is also the third holiest city? And if not, why not? On the issue of the borders, Certainly, Afghanistan is a mystery, since the whole of power of Taliban could not have been withstood without Pakistani help. So what deteriorated? What happened in the meantime? I understand that Musharraf did a lot of damage to that relationship, but considering the ISI, considering the long-term relationship of building up Afghanistan, Pakistan was the first country to recognize Taliban before it was toppled. So what is the dynamic of that relationship? It is the only explanation to it is the Pakistan Taliban? Is that the only thing, or is there something beyond that? And what about the Indian Afghanistan, which is very perplexing? Afghanistan is in the Taliban, is very hardcore ideological one. What explains that? Is it India extending them certain things that other countries are not? How do we understand that dynamics? And then I have two other points. One that relates to Iran, one that relates to Turkey. When we talk about Iran also, what is the extent of that relationship between Iran and Pakistan? Are there strategic relations, or are they just transactional? And if they are transactional, why is that not deeper? Since they do have, and of course, I can understand the relationship between Iran and India. Maybe that is the explanation, but maybe you can enlighten us. I will just have one more because I had 10 minutes, right? You didn't look at the program then. I'm supposed to get 10 minutes.
No, I mean, he's a commentator, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were just asking questions.
I am commenting on her lecture, and I'm trying to get more explanation.
No, it said that you could come back to you, so.
No, I'm almost done here. So now I did talk about with one of the major decision makers in Turkey, and I was trying to again delve into the point of the grand strategy. And they do look here in Turkey that Pakistan is one of the major countries in which there are many aligned interests, and they could actually form an alliance that can benefit the Muslim world at large. Is that the same in Pakistan? And if it is, what are the evidence, the proof that there is a larger relationship among these major countries in light of what's happening around the world? And finally, the situation of normalization, because that is one of the concerns of many people in the Muslim world in light of what happened in the Gaza genocide. Is it possible, is it even conceivable that Pakistan, under the pressure from Trump or trying to get them some goodies, particularly in the economic side, in which they can actually normalize? In Saudi Arabia also is reported that it does not want to go alone, and it's trying to drag with it Pakistan and Indonesia. Is that a possible situation that we can see unfolding in the near future, with the genocide still fresh in our minds? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I'm speaking on. This is a whole new
Lecture.
lecture. Well, thank you so much for these very tough questions. So on the first question about, Pakistan's identity, so you're obviously very right. Pakistan is an Islamic republic. But I do believe that, had Quaid-e-Azam lived as long as Nehru lived in India and served in India, giving it foundational 15, 16 years post-independence, Pakistan's trajectory would have been completely different. It has had to struggle because it did not have resources. It had to very early on during the Cold War had to decide a side. Because after partition, obviously, India had more resources and wherewithal and military. And very early on, we have had a war within the first year of due to Kashmir. So, the securitization of the state and the security interest and the security dilemma was just too big for that Muslim identity to take root. I think Pakistan suffered from identity crisis, perhaps is still suffering from identity crisis until this point in time. And I do believe that had our founding father lived, uh, he would have set the right tone and trajectory for the country. Because Pakistan had to pick up a side very early on in the Cold War, and it was very clearly the United States that it chose. I'm not saying that it conflicted with its Muslimness. It didn't, because then how would you explain Pakistan opening up to China, which was a communist country? So I don't think that Pakistan really saw itself as sort of a messiah or leader of the Muslim world. Even today, even after nuclearization, I do not believe that Pakistan sees itself as that type of a leader that can consolidate or deal with the challenges of the Muslim world just because it has nuclear weapons. It has nuclear weapons and perhaps it's the only country in this world that has stated very openly that it has nuclear weapons for only one country in this world, and that is India, to counter that threat. There were, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was our prime minister, he had the personality was larger, than just him being a leader of a country. He brought together the Muslim world leaders in Pakistan, convened the OIC meeting, and he was also the one who took Pakistan on the path of nuclearization. But even then, he did not stay for so long, and you know the history there. So all I'm trying to say is that in order for the grand strategy to be there, to be the custodian of sorts, and having the military power to back it, that has been missing. And primarily been missing because in order to be that bigger country, and in order to have that identity, which others will follow, you need to have the economic spine. You need to have your own structures done right. You need to not be dependent on the World Bank, on the IMF, in order for you to make your sovereign decisions. And when you have not been making your sovereign decisions, you cannot lead, period. So nuclear weapons are a very small part of Pakistan's identity. They're not the one guiding Pakistan in a particular form. So Pakistan also, moved away from this concept of the Islamic bomb by saying that, since there is no Hindu bomb, no Christian bomb, no Jewish bomb, why should people think that there is an Islamic bomb? So the rationale for nuclear weapons was to just securitize the state, deal with the national security issues, having territorial sovereignty intact, given the designs and hostility it had with India and continues to have with India. So I don't see that, playing any part in the broader shaping of identity, the Muslim leader of the world. Secondly, the kind of relationship Pakistan has had with Saudi Arabia, which considers itself as the leader of the Muslim world. There can't be another leader when that leader exists. And when you are subservient to that leader has been your benefactor, has been providing you the economic support and spine whenever you've needed. There is just no space for Pakistan to assume that identity. It is in the shadows of the kingdom. So I see it that way, and I see that to prevail for foreseeable future. I don't see Pakistan breaking away from that identity and reclaiming that just because we have nuclear weapons, we are the rightful, So I don't see that Pakistan claiming that. And it is very much entrenched in the mindset of the elite, which is both political and military. This identity to be subservient to the kingdom, and the kingdom, is the custodian of the Muslim world. So I hope that answers that question. With respect to your second question about great power competition, US and China. So a lot of people think that Pakistan's hedging, and as you rightly pointed, Mearsheimer, has been theorizing that Pakistan's hedging is not going to take it anywhere. And Pakistan would sooner or later have to decide on what side of history, which country to choose, either US or China. But I've been saying that Pakistan, at the height of its alliance with the United States during Cold War, became a threshold nuclear weapon state. At the height of its alliance in the 80s. And it was also at the height of its alliance when it was partnered in Seattle, in CENTO, taking weapons from the US, that it created an opening for itself with China. So it was taking arms and ammunition to fight the Chinese communists. That was the mutual defense, a mutual, defense framework with the US, that the weapons will not be used against India, they'll be used against China. And yet, we see in 1963, after the Indo-Chinese War, that Pakistan opened up to China and ceded a part of its territory, did the boundary agreement with China. So Pakistan-China relationship did not come in the 80s or 90s. It came at the height of its alliance with the United States. And so balancing these two is not a new phenomenon for Pakistan. It has been a deliberate strategic choice. And so far, Pakistan has been maintaining both. There have been ups and downs with the US. But I don't foresee that there would be anytime soon that United States will be asking, anybody to pick a side. We are not in that Cold War moment, this international world. The problem remains with India, and I've written about it as well, because there is expectation from India to be a counterweight to China. And India's performance in May 2025 crisis has shown the world and the United States that perhaps it bet on the wrong horse. And now that you see the US realignment with Pakistan, part of it is Pakistan's performance in May 2025. So India would perhaps need to choose a side. And the side might not be the US because, like I said, geography is both a curse and a blessing. And you can't just tomorrow lift up your land and move somewhere else. If China and US are confronted, India will have to, will realize that it's in a very, very difficult position, and it might not be fighting on the side of the US. So there's that. With respect to Kashmir, so India definitely has a grand strategy for Kashmir. Definitely. And it has already put the ball in motion. August 5th, 2019, when it revoked the special status of Kashmir and internalized it, made it part of the Indian Union. That was the first step towards consolidating its control over Jammu and Kashmir. And then it opened up the space for Hindu settlements through a Domicile Act. And what that Domicile Act is doing is changing the demographics of Jammu and Kashmir. So if you have 8 million Kashmiris, Muslims living in Jammu and Kashmir right now, guess what? 5 years from now, that demographics is going to be changed. And I believe that it is then that India is going to come and say, okay, Pakistan, you wanted a plebiscite on the UN resolutions, grants. So we are pretty humanitarian. We follow international law. Let's have a plebiscite. And then you won't have the numbers. That is a strategy. That's a very hardcore strategy. And if, I was not a Pakistani, I would say it's a masterstroke. It's like a fait accompli. So what is Pakistan doing about it? I think Pakistan is in a very difficult position with respect to this. But there have been several voices in Pakistan who've been saying that if that is the strategy, that India is changing the demographics and is being the settler colonial master, Pakistan should start saying at various forums that if it ever comes to the numbers game with the plebiscite, we should say that the numbers should be frozen on August 5th, 2019, as a cutoff date. And we do not consider any settlements as legal settlements or the numbers as legal numbers. But for that too, your narrative cannot be ad hoc. You need to have a strategy for that. The engagement with Kashmiri diaspora is there, but I do believe that Pakistan could have had a much stronger strategy with Kashmiri diaspora on board, on the table, when the negotiations with the rest of the world, are happening on Kashmir. So that's where we lack. I do believe that there is so much more that Pakistan can do, just rather than just raising the moral voice on it. With respect to borders and challenges in Balochistan, of course, the biggest fear Pakistan has is another breakup to the likes of 1971 Bangladesh creation. And Pakistan has all the fault lines available for that. And those fault lines, pass through Balochistan as well. Balochistan is too huge a province to be mismanaged. There is a very active insurgency happening there, which has the funding from India. And Pakistan has had the evidence and the dossiers that have been shared with whosoever, in the world. But that alone is not enough. There are too many exploiters out there who want to see Pakistan fail. And Balochistan is their ticket, The people in Balochistan, have a lot of grievances with the state of Pakistan. And rightly so, over a period of years. And I believe that if Balochistan is to be saved, just like Kashmir, people need to be on board. And for that, Pakistan needs to strategize. If it already doesn't have, which there is no evidence as of yet. But I do believe that the powers that we need to understand that the people of Balochistan need to stand by their side if they want to save Balochistan from breaking up. The threat of Israel is absolutely real. There has been overwhelming evidence of Indo-Israel collusion and collaboration, even in the May 2025 crises. And with respect to the Abraham Accords, when UAE joined, and there were, stuff that came out that Israel was looking at setting up a base just across the Arabian Sea, obviously Pakistan was really, really disturbed. So that collusion is really real. The nexus is real. And obviously the security establishment is very much, aware of that threat. I do not believe that there is absolutely, well, I do know that there is absolutely zero discourse in Pakistan on Abraham Accords and Pakistan joining them. There is zero space, both militarily as well as politically, and with both the elites, the political, military elite, because there are severe reputational costs that will come with signing the Abraham Accords, both in-house and external as well. So Pakistan is not going that route. At least as of now, I can say I'm not privy to whatever is happening backdoor, but no amount of inducements are going to push Pakistan towards signing an Abraham Accords. The threat, again, the threat of Israel is very real for Pakistan. And Abraham Accords is not going to settle that, you know. With respect to the no first use, so India has been saying that it has a no first use policy, so Pakistan should calm down. But actually, its doctrine of no first use has been, Pakistan does not take it on face value because Indian doctrine says that we will not be the first one to use nuclear weapons in any context. But then it also says, the doctrine, the written doctrine says that Indian forces stationed anywhere in this world, if they are attacked with chemical, biological, or nuclear, India is going to attack with nuclear. And with the way that we are seeing that, you know, it has a knee-jerk reaction every time a terrorist attack happens inside India or in the disputed Jammu and Kashmir region, it points a finger towards Pakistan. So Pakistan takes no comfort in the fact that it says that it has a no first use. All of Pakistan's strategic calculus is as if it has first use policy. And with counterforce temptations, I meant, you know, India has tested BrahMos cruise missiles in this recent crisis, in testing Pakistan's thresholds, and will continue to test it, which is going to be really, really difficult if you move towards limited war doctrine under the nuclear umbrella. With respect to your question about nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia or Middle East or Islamic countries, what is the harm in it? Like I said, because Pakistan as a country has declared that its nuclear weapons, which by the way are a very minimal number, because and then minimal, credible minimum deterrence, the minimum number to deter your adversary, firstly does not accord any extended nuclear umbrella doctrine to survive because the numbers are minimal and the numbers are towards another country, the only one country adversary. Secondly, Pakistan is still suffering from the proliferation PTSD of AQ Khan network, which brought Pakistan huge reputational costs when United States, broke that news to Pakistan in 2004, and told the world that Pakistan was proliferating, and so that, even though so many years have passed, that statute of limitations is still not passed on that proliferation record. So with respect to sanctions, I think Pakistan is economically too weak to get into that mode again, if sanctions were to be slapped on Pakistan in case of any projection of that sort. With Makkah and Medina being a red line, it's a no-brainer, absolutely is a red line. But I say that if Pakistan, was to even, it doesn't need to tell the world in so many words that it is a red line for Pakistan as well. It doesn't need to tell the world that, yes, our nuclear weapons are going to safeguard Saudi Arabia. If that has to happen, it will happen. If that's a tacit understanding in the backdrop, so let it be. It doesn't need to come out and say explicitly that, yes, now that we have made this pact, all your fears are coming true. I think for any Muslim country, if it was in Pakistan's position, and if Makkah and Medina were threatened, and if Saudi Arabia reached out, extending that umbrella would make sense, irrespective of whatever conditions or no conditions. So there's that. With respect to Afghanistan, so that's the question we also ask, as scholars and academics, how did we lose the Taliban? So when Taliban came back to power in 2021, the whole world was happy, saying that, listen, we have been telling you that Pakistan's proxy was the Taliban, and now they've come back into power, and Pakistan made it happen. But there are so many challenges with respect to that relationship. Firstly, Pakistan did not recognize the Afghan Taliban when they were expecting that Pakistan would be the first country to do so, because we were the first country, along with Saudi Arabia, back in the 1990s, to accept the Taliban as the legitimate rulers. We have not done it until this point in time, number one. Secondly, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the terrorist organization that is anti-state, which was expelled from Pakistan because of military actions that Pakistan took in the federally administered tribal areas, which no longer exist, expelled them into Afghanistan. So they have safe havens in Afghanistan, they come, attack, and then they go back. So Pakistan had been fencing the border, which is 2,600 kilometers, and 90% of it Pakistan was able to fence. And then, there have been Taliban commanders in various sites uprooting that, saying that we don't even accept this as an international border. How come you fence it? So there is that problem. With respect to Afghan's relationship with India, that's always been problematic. And now India and Afghanistan have, again, established their relationship with India, opening a consulate in Afghanistan, even though it has not recognized Taliban yet. So there's that problem. Afghanistan has put these outrageous demands on Pakistan, saying that you reverse federally administered tribal areas legislation and you bring those FATA areas back. There will be no interference from the Pakistani government there. You settle the TTP terrorists there and leave them armed and don't tell them anything, just leave them alone, let them be. And so these demands obviously are not acceptable to Pakistan, and that's what's being negotiated here in Turkey. I don't foresee an outcome of this. Anything will be very, very short-lived. So we'll see as to how that happens. I think on behalf of Afghanistan, I think Afghanistan, Taliban, now that they have a whole country to themselves, we thought that this would be Taliban 2.0. They would have learned their lessons, but I doubt that has happened. I think power has gone to their head, and they do believe that they have a leverage of sorts. Even with United States, they initially, on the face of it, they're saying they're not going to renegotiate use of Bagram Air Base. But I think if the price is right, they will, which is going to be problematic for Pakistan and China as well, to have US again in the region and that up close. And also they're leveraged with India because they know how to push the right buttons and where it hurts Pakistan to negotiate, whatever. So there are those problems there. They're not going away anytime soon. With respect to Iran, Iran and Pakistan have enjoyed good relations over years, but because Pakistan has had this leaning towards Saudi Arabia, it has never openly come out and embraced Iran as a Shiite state because of its ideological leaning towards Saudi Arabia. And because of Iran-Saudi relations, there was never enough room to balance that relationship. Pakistan also has had, suffered over years with sectarian violence, right? Sunni Shia violence, which ran for decades. And also Iranian bent towards India. There was a strategic relationship with respect to Chabahar port that was going to materialize. And that opening obviously never, worked really well for Pakistan because Pakistan being nestled, and having hostile borders, which it now has a hostile eastern border, a hostile western border, and in sort of an encirclement, it does not, bode well for any strategy. I think that's that. So yeah, I've already talked about the normalization with Israel. I don't see that happening for Pakistan. Um, and major countries, alliances with the Muslim world, that's where I do see Pakistan's potential as a middle power because it has reached out. It has a very good, working relationship with the Muslim world. And, with Turkey, I think what has withstood the test of time with Turkey is that the relationship is not based on personalities. It has not been individual, leader to leader. It has been state to state. And I think more credit to that goes to Turkey than Pakistan, to realize the potential of the state and what the state can deliver, with whether that's, political leadership or military leadership and defense ties, mill-to-mill cooperation. We have seen that stood test of time and stood strong. So that's where I will leave it. I hope I've tried to answer all your questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, I want to open it up for other people to ask questions.
If there remain any.
Um, yes, please. I'll repeat your question so that it can get on the mic. Oh, she will be.
I think the answer will surprise, but it doesn't really matter. So you have painted a fascinating picture of Pakistan and being a Kashmiri Pakistani Muslim woman. I would really like to buy into the narrative of Pakistan aspiring to become a middle power that can build strategic alliances. As a concerned Pakistani, I wonder, is there a true real-time capacity for tackling the challenges that geography and geopolitics impose upon Pakistan? And I would like to see a reflection of the aspirations of Pakistan in the prioritization of self-interest. And by self, I don't refer to any people in the government, but I refer to the 250 million Pakistanis in Pakistan. So just as an example, of course, critics claim that CPEC was a badly brokered deal. The trust deficit of even the Chinese government with respect to the utilization of funds that cannot be taken lightly or brushed away. So we are concerned about airspace or airbase in another country being managed by another country. But what about selling away of mineral resources or lands that have mineral resources, or renting them out, or giving control of ports of a country to other countries, or giving control of airports and strategic airspaces within capital cities to other countries? So as a Pakistani, I'm very concerned, and there seems to be a lack of the capacity that is required for tackling all these challenges by now. Thank you.
I can just say you're right and leave it there. I do completely agree that, so Pakistan as a state, is a really complex state. Some critics wonder as to how it has even survived 76 years, let alone survive with nuclear weapons since 1998. But if you, look at as to, what the broader structure of the state is, whether it has been military governments, whether it have been political governments, the problem has always remained that Pakistan's foreign policy has remained short-sighted. It has always been ad hoc. It has always been in the news. Ever since, its inception, it has been in the news with all these challenges. So what is it that endures? You talk about resilience, say Pakistan is a very resilient nation. Pakistani is a very resilient nation. So where does this, resilience come from? I, teach this Gen Z, And, I cannot stand before them in a classroom and not have hope about me for Pakistan. So I look at these 76 years and I say that Pakistan has made mistakes, terrible mistakes over a period of years that we have survived. But we're also in a very evolutionary phase, a very young country. We have experimented with the martial laws. We have seen military dictators. We have seen political leaders. We have seen that dynasty. We're now seeing the second generation of that dynastic politics. We have seen Imran Khan. So it's like a checklist, right? So you keep on checking everything. And I think we will arrive at a point where these generational changes are going to help Pakistan set in that trajectory. But again, I would come back to you as a state. People say that Pakistan has had transactional relations, right? That's the term you have also used. You have also used, literature is full of this. And I say that there is perhaps no country in this world which doesn't have transactional relations. When you established economic relations, when you create those dependencies on IFIs, all of that is transactional in nature. Some is political transaction, some is, military transaction, some is economic transaction, but all of it is transactional. And so I don't see Pakistan being guilty of being transactional. And if, in order to run its business, if I'm being deeply dispassionate here and not speaking to you as an emotional citizen, which shares the same, challenges that you have put forth, I would say that if a state has to run its business and make deals with the devil, look at its national security interests, no matter how narrow they are, then it should do whatever it has to do, right? So Pakistan joining US global war on terror and allowing US to use its territory in order to, the drone, yes, and their own people in the process, it did that. Because the state sort of justified that it had to do that. Now, whether it was right or wrong, and there is a moral judgment attached to it, that's debatable. But if I just look at the state as to what did the state have to do to survive that time of either you are with us or against us, sending you back to the Stone Age, despite being a very new nuclear weapon state, it did not know as to how to set its course as a power. So it did what it did. Now I'm saying that the state is continuing to make mistakes because the state is continuing to learn. The resilience of the people is that it is giving state more time to continue to make these mistakes. Imran Khan's period, we have seen, and although I don't like to talk about domestic politics of Pakistan, but that was the period where, there was an awakening. People came out and people, realized that, we have rights and Pakistan is more than just a rent state, and we can say no to the US, we can say no to Saudi Arabia, and we can have a spine of our own, and despite economic structures and challenges, we can stand. But look where that has ended up. Look where Imran Khan is right now. And the state has again had to do course correction because it does not have the capacity. All the capacities that you have mentioned, it lacks those capacities to have a sustainable spine. And that is going to come once you break free from those economic dependencies that you are caught up in because of the ad hocism of your strategies. right? So setting your own house in order. So I tell my students that what if, Pakistan hangs up this board for 5 years and it says that, listen, we are not available for 5 years to anybody, nobody. And the elite in Pakistan, because there is an elite in Pakistan that I'm not going to close my eyes to, there is a political elite, there is a military elite, there is a business elite. Now, if that elite comes together and says, okay, let's, by the way, in Pakistan, the elite has enough money to make Pakistan debt free today, if it wants to. It has that much money. But why doesn't it come together to do so? Because of the leadership crisis. But let's see, we put that aside for a minute. We say, let's hang the board, let the elites decide that for the next 5 years, this is going to be Pakistan's trajectory, and let's not compromise on that trajectory. Invest in Pakistan, and your money is not going to go out for 5 years. What do you think is going to happen to Pakistan in those 5 years when the elite of Pakistan decides that it is going to invest in Pakistan, make Pakistan debt-free, free of any dependency? Corruption is an endemic part of any society. I'm not even talking about that. You want to fill in your pockets, you fill in your pockets, but you also fill Pakistan's pockets. Pakistan is going to have healthcare. Pakistan is going to have universities. Pakistan is going to get its economic spine. And all of that indigenously can happen if the elite comes together and decides that we want to take Pakistan to this trajectory, and no compromises on that. Do whatever, I don't care. It is doable. But they don't do that because their self-serving interests are too short-sighted. So we have all the answers. So the only thing that gives me hope is that this is doable. If today there is a leader that comes together and brings this elite on board and says, this is it. This is your vision for 5 years, not even 10 years, 5 years, do this, give me this Pakistan. Don't you think that we are able to deliver? We will. What is stopping us? Only ourselves. Nobody else is stopping Pakistan from becoming and realizing that potential that, I talked about earlier. We do have that potential. So all these challenges are very real challenges that you have pointed out. They're very, very real. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, no, nothing of that sort is happening, It is happening. We are compromising because the elite is compromising, right? So as long as there are short-term interests, there's short-term visions, we're not going to see a course correction, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I ask a question about just a kind of more an issue that has come up in some of the discussions regarding Pakistan-Afghanistan relations? The air corridor between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Is there contractual obligations to the United States that Pakistan is obliged to allow for surveillance over Afghanistan? Is that something that is real, or is that just a projection of the Emirates kind of idea of
I don't think, I'm not privy to any contractual obligations unless and until it's Pakistan's own choosing. If it is in strategic interest of Pakistan, then Pakistan will have such arrangements. But I don't think that that contractual obligation is for all times to come. It was there earlier.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I know, but until 2011, it was
Yes.
there.
Yes.
But even before the whole TTP thing happened, we had this very iconic moment where Imran Khan said absolutely not to this really random, very strange question put in front of him, that if the CIA wants to use Pakistani airbase or airspace, will Pakistan allow them to do surveillance? And then we've had many statements from the Department of I guess it's called Department of War now,
Yes,
where they have said we have over the horizon capabilities into Afghanistan. And it just,
Mm.
I don't know the details, but it looks to me like they have to go through Pakistan to be able to do that.
yeah,
Is
for,
that,
yeah.
is that still ongoing cooperation with the CIA?
There's border central relations as well. So the latest statement is 2 days back from ICE, they say that there is no such contract
Contract,
which
yeah.
Afghan Taliban brings
Yeah.
Pakistan, but he said
Yeah.
not at all this time. But there are borders with central nations as well, Afghanistan shares, so it is a high possibility that they will from there, as well as from UAE or Qatar for that matter.
Mm.
But at least it's not that just Pakistani airspace that they can use airspace, not the central nations. If you allow me, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't see you, the map that you have given us about Pakistan's policies on foreign affairs front and the transactional ties that it had. So there is nothing bad to have transactional relations,
Mhm.
but over the period of 70 years, what is the end? And you have been in Pakistani security state, did not use military direct. It has been bad with us for until 2010, 11, until this episode of Osama bin Laden happened. But then we saw all of a sudden radical shift that Pakistan is out of sight, lost, and it is India now trying to change that kind of work. What the ills that we now see in Pakistan's foreign affairs, from where have they generated from inside Pakistan? I mean, at least I don't see we don't see that in political leadership or political governments that we have had in Pakistan. One is that. Second thing is with regard to China. There has been, I read somewhere in Japan that it originated from the Indian think tank, and I forgot its name, about this debt trade policy with regard to China.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody now Trump is the megaphone of that, and Imran Khan had become unpaid advertiser of China's development. China is your iron brother. Why is Pakistan unable to benefit from that China's development story? China has been able to eliminate extreme poverty, pull out of its 800 million people from, but just next to Pakistan is there, you are just 250 million. And now, I mean, Pakistan has been unable to benefit from that relationship. Why is it so?
Mhm.
The last one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kashmir.
Sure.
I mean, has now Pakistan spirit state come to this point that, see, what happens to Jammu and Kashmir, let it happen.
Mm.
We should leave this question, and leaving that question will save Pakistan. Has Pakistan come to this stage now that leaving Kashmir question will save it?
Thank you. So with respect to US, Pakistan relationship has always been very episodic. There has been ups and downs. You have all sorts of adjectives for this relationship, marriage of convenience, roller coaster, you name it, has been divorced several times. Um, but like I said, when a country does not have long-term strategic goals, it does not have a strategy for those goals to be achieved, right? So the goals have always been very episodic. They've always been very short-sighted. Let's survive early Cold War. Let's form alliances. Okay, formed alliances. Let's get the weapons so that we could fight with the Indians. Okay, that happened. Let's open up to China because because we share the same adversary in India. Let's move to development of nuclear weapons, but obviously at the height of US alliance when a blind eye could be turned so that you could continue with the nuclear weapons development. And then, comes the Cold War, and then obviously there's a change of interest on both sides. Pakistan had to consolidate, look inward, consolidate its nuclear weapons, drive towards the weapons. And US suddenly realized that non-proliferation was huge on its agenda. So obviously there was a contrast there. Um, Again, same thing that I said to Aisha earlier, with China as well, it has been, although it might, if you zoom out and you look at the relationship, it would seem like the most sustainable, consistent relationship since 1963 until this point in time. And so it didn't need to translate into something big. It translated into defense relationship, which behind the scenes has been really consistently helping Pakistan modernize its military and nuclear. Um, and so that has delivered. On the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the kind of terms and conditions that Pakistan could have negotiated, did not negotiate. Again, short-sightedness. Learning from China, lifting 2 million people from poverty, that is a quote that every Pakistani politician has quoted until this point in time. But in order for you to do that, you need to set your own house in order. And by that, I mean, obviously, do strategic reforms, security reforms, economic sector reforms at home, which you didn't. So to emulate China is one thing, to fancy it is one thing, but to have a roadmap in order to have it on ground requires capacity, and that's a question that has always been on. We don't have the required capacity. It has never built because, again, of short-term elite interest. So in China, not only China, in India as well, the elite came together. They agreed on a trajectory. They agreed on a GDP figure for their countries. And then they set their course. Irrespective of whatever is happening in the region, there is no compromise on the growth trajectory of their countries. We have failed to do that. So there's that. A lot of shortcomings there. And with respect to Jammu and Kashmir, like I said, it's really, I personally believe that it is, India has played its cards. And there is not, and also with respect to Indus Waters Treaty now, they have played their card. And if we think that this is only a short-term thing that's happening and India is not going to go anywhere with it because it can't, it can. And so it's slowly testing the, thresholds with respect to how much further can we push this country and what concessions can we take. And they have done exactly that. Since 2019, zero conversation between the two states. And it is not that Pakistan has not tried to speak to India. They have tried to open bilateral communication, but that's a no-go. So again, they are also looking at Pakistan as a state which has had weaknesses, not playing from a position of strength, has disunity at home, divide between state and the citizens increasing. So all of these fault lines are seen by the world, and the world is going to treat you the same way as the cards that you're going to show them. And unfortunately, that's the case. So even if we believe that we have that strategic parity with India, India's strategy of encircling Pakistan now through Afghanistan is, again, another thing that is going to leave us with very hard choices to make in times to come. And sorry to say, but Kashmir is, does not look good to me. Thank you.
Okay, we still have a few minutes.
One more question.
And I think we have like time for one or two more questions.
Very good question.
Yes.
If Pakistan anticipates the destabilization forces, would there be any red lines? If they were asked, for example, to respond with systems, they actually do that?
Respond?
To disarm resistance groups in Gaza, or would there be some red lines that we cannot cross?
I really don't know if the terms for setting up the ISF have been made public yet. I don't know what conditions, what conditions states will be participating and to do what. So unless and until that blueprint comes out, I might not be able to answer that question directly.
Just actually experience, because that's what Trump has been talking about.
Yeah.
Watch this force,
Yeah,
trying to get he went to them, they said, we need a Security Council mandate.
yeah,
I don't think the Security Council mandate would give him that.
yeah.
Then they would be asked by the board that he is chairing, this is what I'd like to do. First to do it through soft power, but if not hard power, I'm just trying to see whether that would ever come to pass, whether ever stand up.
I just hope that the countries that are coming together to form this coalition, will have their own set of terms and conditions to participate in it. And I hope that that's being negotiated. I also cannot believe that ISF will not have Turkish troops in it and there will be Pakistani troops in it. How would Israel be okay with that? And why is Israel okay with that? That's my question.
But so
You
far,
know.
I mean, so far, both countries have accepted, and Israel only vetoed Turkish.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's beyond me. So I hope that Pakistan in its negotiation pushes for Turkish troops to become a part of ISF because, that should happen given Turkey's own experience. And, Pakistan has, again, it will be problematic. I don't think, again, it is,
But domestically, you don't think, even if they order the extended troops would actually go and fight Palestinians? That is not the cause.
no, that's not what the stabilization force should do. And I think there's a lot of support for Gaza and Palestine within Pakistan. Pakistan lately has made very, very strong comments against Israel at UN platforms, which actually is, I'm not going to say it's unprecedented, but the tone and the body language has been really strong, which tells you that that would be non-negotiable. And if the stabilization force is there to stabilize the region, which means that it doesn't allow the Israeli forces to launch an attack and break ceasefire, then it should be welcome, right? But let's see as to, what are some of the contours on which, and I do hope that Turkey becomes a part of ISF.
I had a question on the Pakistani-Saudi Defense Pact.
Sure.
Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, I know the Saudis aren't gonna come join Pakistan.
Of course not, of course not.
So like, what's the point of it?
Yeah, so,
Seems like a one-way, like, it doesn't really seem like a pact. I mean, I don't know that the agreement wasn't made public, so
yes.
we don't really know if there's like a clause of mutual defense or not. Because it's
So on
ridiculous
the-
to think the Saudis are gonna come.
no, I think even the Saudis would not want to come, if there is an attack on Lahore, I
Yeah.
don't think so that they're gonna
I
come
don't even,
save
I don't
us
think the
from,
Pakistanis want
no.
Saudis to go.
No, it's not a NATO type treaty act. It is not an act of collective defense. It is a
Okay.
defense pact, which means that Pakistan gets to train Saudi forces, some troops deployment if need be, because the Yemen style that we earlier said no to, and training. And Pakistan has been doing all of this.
They've already been doing.
They've already been doing it, but hadn't really formalized it.
I see.
So I think it is more of an optics rather than substantial. And no, it's not.
Since the
It's
seventies.
not that. Sorry.
Since the 70s.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, from what I know, is really just, is it still banking on American security architecture to protect the
Yes.
kingdom?
Yes.
Mostly.
Yes,
So
it
there's
is.
no pivot from that.
No, there is no pivot. It just wants to signal US that it is diversifying its defense partners, joint production of weapons and stuff like that.
Okay.
Nothing more than that. Saudi Arabia still wants a nuclear power plant, which is going to come from the US.
I see.
So there is no pivoting from the US,
I see.
from the broader security architecture.
We have one more question, Aisha, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
close.
What about alliances and realignments?
Mhm.
So about this Hindutva and Zionism alliance, how big a threat that is perceived as by Pakistan, and what can be prospects or the possibilities or dangers in the future?
Yeah. So this, Indo-Israeli collaboration collusion is not new. In the 1980s, when Pakistan was developing its nuclear weapons program and complex, there had been threats of attack to dismantle, early capabilities. So that is there. But over a period of years, it has strengthened. And not only Indo-Israeli, but also Indo-US, which provides India with a lot of modernization and agreements whereby satellite imagery can be shared and stuff like that. And with respect to emerging technologies, Israel is pretty high end and high tech. So that collaboration definitely for a nuclear weapon state which borders another, and that too the contiguity of it so close together, any intelligence sharing between them is detrimental to Pakistan. So Pakistan is definitely very cognizant of it, and is trying to upgrade and modernize its systems, working with China on it, and parts of it you saw in May 2025 as to how advanced the systems were, which took India by surprise. Thank you.
So I want to extend a warm thanks to Dr. Rabia for the analysis. And I want to appreciate everybody who's participating here. We have a small token of our appreciation, Dr. Rabia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Take a photo.
Thank you so much for beautiful.
And yeah, I just want to invite everybody for our next seminar that will happen at the end of November. So look out for our flyer, and for all those who are joining us online on the live stream, please stay tuned for our next event.